Don't sue me cause I'm doing this music. Everything is gonna be okay. Bum.
Welcome to Super Garbage Day, a retro video game review show where my co-host and I are randomly chosen a game, usually obscure, 20 years or older, that neither of us have played, with hopes to find the treasures in the trash. I am your host, B. Rosh. And to my right,
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Miller. Hot shingles, you say. Welcome back. Yes. So, this week is special because it is a Patreon episode. And if people aren't aware of what that means, a Patreon, Mr. Daniel Kenshiro, submitted a game for us to play this week and review. So that's special. This is the first time. Also, the last episode of the year, which is great.
Yay!
Yes. And we're going to start 2023 off with the same old stuff. But I'm happy to be here. It's our 7th episode, I think, or 8th.
This is 7.
It's 7? Okay. You're right.
You're thinking of a bonus
episode. Yeah, because we have a
episode.
bonus episode that is peppered in there. Yes, so 7th episode, still having fun. There's lots. If you're here for the first time, there is a lot of content to go back and listen to. It's we both are proud of it. And if you are interested in contributing to the show, we have a Patreon. It is in the show notes because I learned my lesson. $2 gets you a bonus episode every week, and $5 allows you to add a game of your choice, as long as it is 20 years or older. Doesn't matter if we've played it or not. It can be a good or bad game. And we pull from that at the end of every month, and we will do an episode on that here on the main channel, the main podcast channel. So also on twitch.tv/supergarbageday, I do first impressions of the games that are chosen every week. So you can stop by there, say hi, make fun of me, watch me play. We're going to get Mr. Miller on board with that eventually. And also, we have a YouTube channel. Just look up YouTube. Well, I mean, don't look up. Obviously, you know what YouTube is. But just go to YouTube, put in Super Garbage Day Podcast, and all of the VODs from the Twitch and other content will be on there that has to do with retro video game reviews and the show and fun and everything we're having. And I'm having a blast.
I haven't uploaded anything in a while, but I do still have my...
Yeah, you got to give people your...
my Twitch. I have my Twitch. It's Moostacrackish13.
Definitely gonna have to spell that.
Yeah, so we'll put that in the show notes.
Notes.
I will.
Also, when and if Mr. Miller, Mr. Lenny Kravitz Mr. Kravitz. When that does happen, I will also upload that to the YouTube channel, so that there's a variety of things you can look back on. It's fun to see the first impression videos, because especially games I've never played that are terrible, because I just rip them apart, and I don't think those are very edited. By the way, the Patreon exclusive episodes are unedited, so these ones try to keep it clean because, you know, the kids.
It's for the children.
For the children, man. Wu-Tang.
The kids.
Wu-Tang. All right, so here's a part where I ask the question I do every week. Not the same question, but same category. Mr. Miller, I want you to give me 2 Desert Island retro video games.
What do you mean by that?
So let's say you and I are in a plane.
Oh, the game you would take with
no.
you?
No. Yeah. Pretty much that. But like, let's make this ridiculous scenario. Plane crashes, but we had a retro game system with us that we can play that is solar powered.
Okay.
So you get to choose 2 games that you can play while you're waiting to be rescued on this desert island. What are they?
Well, so we're both on the island.
Yes.
Okay.
And a monkey.
Well, I mean, I would hope there's
and a parrot. Yes.
That makes it more interesting, because now I'm
coconut crabs too.
Because I was thinking, are they just games that I could just sit there and geek out on?
Well, are you saying, okay, so you're saying like, let's take multiplayer out of it.
Okay, so there's no
multiplayer.
All right.
I mean, we're there because we're helping each other survive.
Okay.
So us and the monkey and the parrot, and the coconut crab. By the way, if you're new to the show, he never knows what I'm going to ask him every week. So
I would. Oh, it's got one of them's got to be an RPG because that's just hours of.
Yeah,
and something that you can change your class.
Okay.
Because that adds a lot of replayability. So, but they have to be for the same console, or can I have multiple consoles?
No, it could be. Let's just say it's the same stipulations of our show.
Can I have a solar powered PC?
Sure.
Okay.
God, that's a good idea though.
Yeah, because
why haven't they done that yet? What Apple? Why haven't you?
But I would probably think it's because the amount of power you would need. Versus,
yeah, right. Have you seen these drones they use in war?
Yeah.
Come on. Oh, they got a car flying around towards Mars. Give me that. They can do it.
Well, I'm a sucker for Baldur's Gate, man.
Oh, it's a good choice.
I love the
That's
Baldur's
got longevity.
Gate. I love the Baldur's Gate series, and I can
one
play,
or two.
I prefer two.
Mm-hmm.
One is good, but I prefer two.
Okay.
I think they caught their stride in that game, and I brought it up before. It's got a great villain.
Well, generally, also like number twos, especially in the PC world, are usually like better. They're more more polished.
It had the class system more polished, and the combat was better. The magic system was impeccable, and
it's got a high replayability too.
Yeah, I mean,
restart a new game.
You just play a different character.
True.
You could literally play the same character with different stats, and you have a different experience.
Yeah, now I'm thinking about the question I asked you, and I'm like, I didn't have an answer prepared, and now I'm like, I should have just said yes to multiplayer. So let's just make a quick change. One single player game, one multiplayer game.
One multiplayer game.
So, but Baldur's Gate is going to count as your single player game.
Okay, single player game. Because
the multiplayer is awesome.
Because could be a multiplayer game.
Well, that's too easy. That's too easy, man.
Multiplayer. Man. Is Smash Brothers in this realm yet?
Oh yeah.
The original?
Well, I think also the GameCube one, Melee.
Really? Is Melee that old now?
It was GameCube.
Man, I'm old.
All GameCube games are. I think the whole entire GameCube library, with an exception to maybe not. But you know what though? As of January 1st, that unlocks a whole nother year.
Another year, yeah.
And I'm not specific. We're not like exact dates here. As of January 1st, we can play 2003 games.
Yeah.
That's 20 years.
I could grind out some Super Smash.
Yeah.
Like even by myself, I can still have fun with that.
Melee or
even the original
N64, really?
I remember there was I
love them both. Don't get me wrong.
I can't remember what year it was. I want to say it was 99.
Mm-hmm.
Had a one of those big semis with a bunch of Nintendo consoles on the side of them, and they would roll through your town.
I've never heard of this.
You never heard of this?
This really happened?
Yeah, they would roll through your towns, and they would hold like impromptu tournaments and stuff.
Sounds awesome.
It was dope.
That's probably how the whole Smash like subculture began.
And that was like one side was Smash. They had one cabinet that just had like Super Mario 64.
Blitz.
No, they didn't have any sports games. Specifically,
I had no idea this happened. This is interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's
like,
cool.
And it had, the semi truck had it looked like a Nintendo Power magazine rolling through your town, basically.
Oh, Nintendo is so good.
Yeah. But yeah, that rolled through, and they had an impromptu like Super Smash Bros. Tournament.
That had to have been the beginning.
And it was tight. And that was like the thing that was like, I have to get this game.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to own this. It has to be.
That's the first time you played Smash Brothers?
Yeah.
I recall playing it, and my initial response with Smash Brothers was, why is this called Super Smash Brothers? And then I saw Mario and Link, and I'm like, all right, and it's a fighting game, and I'm like, okay. And then I played it, and I'm like, oh yeah. Yeah, this is great. I actually owned the N64 cartridge, and I played the living hell out of that.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to get all the unlockables. Like, Nintendo knows what they're doing. If they're going to make a game, I think that might have been the first game they ever made that had all of their IPs on it, or maybe not all, but all their major ones.
It's funny because it is a published My Nintendo game. It's actually produced by HAL, which is the producers
Earthbound.
of and Kirby.
Yeah,
and yeah, so it's not even like a quote unquote Nintendo game,
right?
But
HAL,
but HAL is basically
there's got to be a little bit owned by Nintendo,
yeah.
but
Well, it's like Rare with Donkey Kong.
Makes sense. I was also surprised. HAL Laboratories did have their hand in the creation of that and moving forward, but to see Ness in there,
yeah,
as a huge, enormous Earthbound fan, my favorite RPG on the Super Nintendo, I was like, oh yeah, this game is my game now, because I would just play as Ness. I'm like, I can't believe, because Earthbound got so just thrown on the back burner by Nintendo after it didn't sell well, and so to see like Ness not only in that game, but now where we're at with Smash culture and the tournaments and the $1 million tournaments they do online or not online, but like in person, and like the esports side of it, it makes my heart so happy to see like people like playing Ness or Lucas or other people from the game or the games.
The fact that there's like 100 characters now.
Yeah. And they keep introducing ones and you're like, well, okay, all right, some more Fire Emblem people.
But it is funny though, because it in itself is like a retro game treasure trove.
It really is.
It's you see these characters where you're like, well, I like to play as them in this game. What game did they come from?
Except Rob, right?
Well, I mean, Rob is a cool piece of tech that is the saddest piece of tech at the same time.
I haven't. Have you seen my Rob?
I didn't realize you had a Rob.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take a break real quick. I'm gonna grab
it. Don't sue me cause I'm doing this music. Everything is gonna be okay. Bum. B. Ross is still not back. I'm gonna sing this little silly track, and I'm just hitting here with what I think are maracas. Choo. Hey, it's Rob.
There you go.
Oh, you sad little man.
Yeah, dude, I've got a Rob.
I don't have friends, so my parents bought me one.
It's funny how, and this Rob I have is in great condition.
In really good shape.
Also still works. Funny story about it is when I started collecting, I'm a huge collector, if people don't know. I have a giant retro collection, and by giant, I mean not that big. I'm just kind of boasting. But when I threw online that I started collecting Nintendo memorabilia, because it's one of my top 3 favorite systems, original NES. A friend of mine said, hey man, I got that Nintendo robot in my garage, man. He's been in there since my childhood. I was like, how much you want for it? He's like, I'll just send it to you.
He just gave you.
He just gave me that.
It arrived. Don't tell him how much they're worth.
Then it arrives and it works. And I tested it out on my NES with like stack them, and I'm like, oh my gosh. What's funny too now though is that this Rob has become a part of like my family, like my children.
He's gonna stay here forever.
Yeah, my kids are like, hey Rob, and I'm like, and they see him on videos or like Smash videos, and they're like, oh look, it's Rob, But it's cool to have one because it was totally by fate, and he arrived kind of very dirty and dusty and cleaned him up, but it's kind of cool. I mean,
I would love to have one just to have on my desk.
Yeah, because it's cool looking.
It's a cool statue.
It does have a little bit of like the yellowing, from the sun, but I need to get him away from the window.
That classic Nintendo. What did they make their plastic out of?
Yeah, there's a way to fix that though. There's a link down in the description.
But it's
now weird. I have to put it in.
Sorry, I gave you homework.
Yeah, that's all right.
But it's weird that Nintendo systems specifically, like those old, like the 64 and the NES, or not the 64, the NES and the SNES. Mm-hmm. They had that weird yellowing. Like, what was in the plastic that made it yellow?
I actually kind of know a little bit about this. I'm going to bring up this for a reference. It happened primarily with the Super Nintendos more than the Nintendos, but it has to do with a chemical they were using when they were creating the plastic. They were adding, I can't remember the element or the chemical or whatever it was, but it did not respond well to UV rays.
Interesting.
So UV rays would actually change. It wouldn't really like damage the plastic or whatever the alchemy is, but it definitely turned it that like smoker's yellow. And like the whole urban legend was that like, oh, this NES or this SNES or this Rob, which nobody's ever said because not a lot of people have this, but Humble brag. They say, oh, this came from a smoker's house, but
Oh,
actually
yeah.
it was because it was within direct sunlight near a window or was out like in a yard
So
sale.
it was in not a gamer's house.
Yeah. So if you have an SNES, and I can see, what the sad part is here on the back, I'm seeing the yellowing happening because
Yeah.
I keep them near a window and I should know better.
Yeah.
However, it is actually kind of an easy fix.
Right.
So
Well-
you do have to disassemble it, and I ain't doing that because that boy's part of my family. So this episode has special guest Rob the Robot from 85. Anyway, so the two games I would have chose.
Robbie 5 is alive.
Would have been a Rob game. Robbie 5. Yeah, I know. It's like Johnny 5. Kind of definitely took a lot of inspiration. Yeah. So the games I would have, I'm now just thinking like, okay, well, Cold Decept, you probably don't know what that is, but
Cold Decept?
Cold Decept was this game that's on the PS2.
Uh-huh.
It's so good. So good. And the only way I can describe it is, and this is not really going to sell it, but it's like Monopoly meets Magic the Gathering.
Okay.
That would be my multiplayer game.
So it's a turn-based tabletop with card battling mechanics.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds cool.
And every round that you play, whether you play single player or multiplayer, because you have your own save file and you create your own, your scepter, as they call it, you get new cards.
Oh, interesting.
And you can't choose them.
Okay.
And you might get rares that you can use, like boss cards, and it works. It's such a good game, dude. If we ever get to a point where we do I had a name for it, where we give each other a game to play for a week, which we were just discussing before this episode about making that like a Patreon exclusive, where I give you a game, you give me one, and then we play, and then we come and review it together. It's definitely probably going to be Cold Decept for you, because I feel like it's right up your alley, and it's so addictive.
I mean, as long as that card art is dope, man.
Oh my God, it is.
Because that's one of the big things. It's like why I love
you can tell the game is insanely inspired by Magic, and I don't play Magic.
Yeah.
So, but I know the art, and the art's very close to that. Second game, Techno Super Bowl. Come on. Come on, I've been playing that game for 30 years already. I can play it for 100 years.
I just don't really like a lot of sports games.
It doesn't matter. It's the mechanics.
I mean, I was just thinking back to the previous question, not to derail us too much.
No, we're fine. We're still talking about
the
question of the week.
Like I said I think like the FromSoft series is overrated.
Right.
And after thinking about it, it's like
specifically Dark Souls.
Specifically Dark Souls. It's like, because I mean, FromSoft, their stuff aesthetically dope. Even Dark Souls game, everything about it, it's beautiful. Sound design is great.
Yeah, it is.
The controls, I wouldn't say are tight, but they're tight for what it is. If you know what you're doing with the certain characters, then you can pull off some crazy stuff.
It's very like armor based too,
but it's a little
weapon
jank.
Based and like weights and like inventory.
There's some jank in there.
Yeah, there is, especially the first one.
A retro series that I hate, and it is continuing to make me hate it. FIFA.
Oh, really? I'm not a soccer or football person, so like I have no dog in that race, man.
It's the same game
like
every year. I know. Any I would just say blanket,
just EA.
Any sports franchise game.
Yeah.
Because all it is just milking money for a new roster. They don't really update the mechanics.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I just blah.
Well, that the problem with that comes down to the licensing rights of the players and the organizations, and that's been the biggest thorn in the side of other developers. They can make sports games, but they can't use the real players, and they know that's where the money is.
Right.
And EA, that's kind of what their stranglehold has been. That's where they have kind of a monopoly, and I think everybody's sick of it. We're so sick of it.
It just specifically FIFA, because also of like how gross they are in the actual sporting world.
And you're going to keep buying them, right? If you're a huge fan.
And
especially if you're competitive.
Yeah.
If you're in the competitive market, the online or
even just mind-boggling to me.
Well, of course. Well, I don't know. Really though? Like I've been watching esports a lot lately, and I've been like, this is actually really intriguing to watch.
I mean, I love
the high levels of it. Like in FIFA's in there.
I watch Katowice every year, which is a StarCraft 2 tournament.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it has its niches, and it has its culture, and And I see why. Like, I mean, there's things I'm obsessed with that people are like, what are you doing? Even a podcast. Like, you do a podcast, you play old games. I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And you want to know why? Because I don't trust games these days.
Yeah.
You go back 20 years, you're playing real games. You're not being data mined because you have to be online. There's no DMC or whatever. It's DCR.
DLC.
No, not even that.
DRM.
Both. Well, some of these games probably fall into the DLC, but there's something.
I know what you're talking about. DRM.
But there's something that speaks about retro games where it's you in the game or you and your friend in the game, and it's very wholesome. And now games are created either to have these gigantic Hollywood budgets, which I'm not knocking it. It's fine. They're beautiful. They're experiences. I get it, but it's not the same as it used to be when it felt more pure. There wasn't as many heads around the corporate table. Who don't give a crap like about games. That's why I've always kind of respected Nintendo, because they've always kept it like gamer focused. Even though they've
I was just about to say
they also fallen victim to the sins.
Most recently they're under fire right now.
Yeah. But that's why retro games are important, because when you really get into a retro game, especially like an old console with a cartridge game, when you find yourself actually getting lost in it, it's a feeling that's different than throwing in the new God of War or like downloading some content to play online with your homies, and because that's a completely separate situation.
Right.
Like those are. But that's another reason why I like this, and it's also like I'm older, or we're millennials, so it's a part of our past, very nostalgic. Another point of the show I want to bring up is that like I feel like this show in particular, we're critiquing things that we've never played that are randomly chosen, and I hope a little bit that it helps towards the future of game development, and I hope that we go a route of like explaining, or we're at least a part of this pool and this pact of people who are telling you what good games are,
things that work and things that don't,
that don't, and if anything, if not that, then it's entertaining for people to listen to.
Yeah, because
I told you, I want us to create a show that I would listen to, and I think we pulled that off. So we're both very happy of how far we've come. 7 episodes in, so thank you. It's our 7 episode anniversary.
Hey. That's right on the cusp of 2 months of content, man.
It is, and it's good. I mean, it's good that we've done this. I mean, the jury's out. It's if people like our show, if they don't like our show, that's all good. We're just glad you listen. So that was like the biggest intro ever.
Yeah,
to a game that deserves a lot more time than we're gonna give it. So our game this week was chosen by Danielle Canchiro, and the game is Tomba on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah! Or if you are international, I found this out.
Oh yeah, it has a different name.
Tomba. For some reason in Europe, it was renamed as Tomba or Tombi.
I wonder if it was like it had something to do with the language or some kind of obscene.
The only thing I could find is
term or
that
derogatory
in Italy. I think it's Italian. Tomba means death, and so they didn't want that connotation.
Yeah,
but that's the only thing I can think of.
Mortis, but I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll look into it. I'm not that Italian, but
it might be a different kind.
I think I'm thinking of Latin. Actually,
it might be a different. Mortis does sound Latin, more Latin than.
Oh well. Anyways, this Tomba. I already played the noise. Yeah! Tomba is a 1997 platform adventure game developed by Whoopee Camp and published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation 1. Released in 1998, even though I said 1997, but that is when the Japanese version was released. And then a year later, it was released nationwide to the world.
Nationwide to the world.
Nationwide to the world. So, Tomba, first impressions. Okay, so I'm gonna let you do first impressions this time.
I was not expecting an anime,
right?
When I first booted it up, which was actually it was kind of nice because I was like, oh, there's some production value in this.
Actually, great intro, right?
Yeah. It was it's a
good sign,
fun little romp, and then I wasn't expecting the sprites to be how they were. It went from this very anime style to a almost like pastel watercolor, like oily. It's weird. The characters, the way
how I described it was Donkey Kong Country clone.
Kinda. Yeah, actually that's very close to the aesthetic. Almost almost claymation.
Respectfully, though.
But yeah.
Respectfully. Like, I'm not saying it's a ripoff, but I definitely see a lot of Donkey Kong Country influence.
But at first I was just like, okay, let's platform. Let's go.
Yeah. After the garbage we've been playing.
The first time you jump on an enemy and instead of bouncing off of their heads, you latch on to their nape with your little feral fangs. You just bite everything.
Bite them.
Was hilarious to me. And so like this game immediately has charm.
Yep.
And if anything, that was enough to just make me be like, all right, let's see where this goes.
You want to know how on par we were with our first impressions? Let me just list off my show notes here. Great intro, lots of charm. Seems like it has a large budget. Tight controls. Love the biting mechanic.
Yeah.
I don't have to do mine now.
Yeah.
You got the first impressions down. But yes, I agree 100%. It was nice. Perhaps we had rose tinted everything on because of the last 2 episodes we've had to play. One being a Patreon exclusive. You should check it out. It's a really funny episode about diabetic elephants. I feel the same way. It was a breath of fresh air for me to see this, and immediately I thought like seems like it has a big budget. Like this is definitely something from the get-go. Like, which
is funny because it had a relatively smaller budget and a small team.
It did, but the team was high caliber.
Oh yeah, at least the director alone.
Yes, the director.
He's
we might as well talk about this now, but the director of the game, his name was
Takuro Fujiwara.
Yeah, Takuro Fujiwara, who worked for Capcom for like 13 years.
And before that, he worked for Konami.
So this person knew what they were doing, and also worked on a lot of the Mega Man series and worked on Ghosts and Goblins series.
Yep.
And created was a part of these A teams that created iconic games and characters. So this was the result of him leaving Capcom and creating his own company, which became Whoopee Camp. So, which I wanted to. It doesn't really matter when I say this, but I didn't really want to say it for later, but I'll just say now, like, they only made 2 games.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, this
and Tomba
2,
Return of the Evil Pigs.
So this entire game company and team made 2 games, and this is one of them, and the other one is the sequel to this game.
They did make a comeback, not officially as a developer. They are now more of a consultant company.
That makes sense.
Because they oversaw the remake or the remaster of Ghosts and Goblins.
Oh, the newest one?
The
Resurrection. I hear it's phenomenal. I know it's kind of a shame I haven't played it yet because I'm actually a big fan of that IP. But I hear amazing things, and that it actually captures that soul of those original games.
So they are around still, but they aren't making games.
When I hear consultant, I especially in the video game market, especially people with this kind of like academia towards it and like this renown, I think this is quality assurance people. They're
right.
Like, yeah, like this is the best team you can have to be like, no, this is where this is wrong and this is where it's right, and let us just give you some insight. But I mean, yeah, and it really shows like the experience in game design and character development and world building really does show in Tomba. That's my first impressions. I mean, you pretty much just mirrored each other.
Yeah. Mirror match, go. So, yeah. He knows all my moves.
We're just gonna go to gameplay. Let's go. So gameplay. Well, the story. Let's start with the story. So years ago on an uncharted archipelago.
Archipelago.
That's debatable. You say arch, I say tomato. A group known as the 7 Evil Pigs appeared and used their magical powers to tarnish the land, which sounds a little JJ Squawkings inspired. No, I'm kidding. It's that's really all. I mean, they really go into it though.
I mean, it was very much it's funny because I drew a lot of Mario parallels with this
Yeah.
because the instead of turtles, they're pigs,
Yes.
and so it's like the 7 Koopas
Right.
because
I didn't even think about that.
that's Super Mario.
That's a great
That's Super
point.
Mario World all over again.
Well, I feel like this game was competing with the big dogs across the board. As I spoke earlier about the Donkey Kong Country similarities, which I think are very heavy, but not so much to where it feels rip-off-ish. Just a little bit of like, aha, kind of Donkey Kong Country-ish with the music. Well, we'll get to that, but
Do not compare this.
I know. But I'm saying
I
I saw inspiration, or at least I saw competition. I should probably say competition instead of inspiration, because the person who was taking the helm here, which I'm not sure is the right word, but I feel like they knew what they were doing, and this wasn't somebody that needed to come in and copy people. Like, this was a big wig who helped create Mega Man,
yeah,
and a lot of like the characters there, and a lot of the
it definitely felt like it was his passion project.
Definitely got passion from it. Not like I kind of was, though. I'm spoiler alert, I like this game, but I saw a lot of love given to this, and you can always tell when a game has a lot of love injected into it, and it is a passion project, when you see how intricate and how small and granular things are within its world, to where Earthbound does this a lot. If you play Earthbound, you see like every single thing in the game has been given attention. Nothing is phoned in. Nothing is minuscule. Like, and I got those vibes from Tomba. Like, everything in it was important, and all had to wrap together. It all had to make sense. But also, it's kind of crazy. It's got a crazy game.
It's weird.
It's weird.
There's some weirdness to it.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to the gameplay aspects of it, for the most part, it is your standard platformer.
Yes.
2.5D. Because you can move forward and back within the environment, as well as left to right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you have two different planes, pretty much, of platforming, because the background area, which I'm just going to call it that, when you jump back there, it's like a complete different. It has enemies there.
It's its own level.
Yeah. Like, the enemies in the forefront or the background, they can't affect you depending on which plane you're on.
And in some stages,
but sometimes they do.
In some stages, it completely changes what is even going on.
Right.
Like, there are some where the foreground is not even a part of it. But when you're when you're in the background stage, the foreground isn't even a part of it. But when you're in the foreground,
it like disappears.
Yeah.
The mushroom stage.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Yeah.
Because I saw that happen. I was like, okay.
Yeah. And it's a completely different world.
It's got depth, man.
But there are weapons for the most part.
And armor.
Yeah.
It's equipable. It's got RPG elements.
It does change how your character moves, but it's not like I'm switching through pants. Like, once I get
it's that classic RPG of like, you've got this new item that's good for your level. You're wearing this until you find something better.
Which
you're using this weapon until you find something better.
I kind of wish there was a something to do with the old stuff, because there was a clutter problem with the inventory system.
Right.
It's like, at least while you're in the inventory, the world stops.
Yes.
Unlike some games where it's like, oh, I got to pull this up, and the enemies are still moving, and you're still getting your ass kicked.
Yeah, which is, I think, kind of rare for that time, though, for that to happen, though, because most of the time the pause screen,
right, it is a
full blown pause screen menuing.
Yeah,
like you're taking a break and just like figuring out what you want to do, but the game doesn't really require you to do that often in the moment, right?
No,
it's usually like, with discovery.
It would be like during a boss fight or something where you don't need. For example, once you get the parasail equipment, like, you don't want that equipped all the time, because you want to be able to fall faster so that you can get those jump attacks.
And also get to certain areas that have secret things, or like where you can solve events, because everything in the game is they're called events, right?
The quests.
The quests.
Yeah.
There's 130 of these in this game, and they kind of like just throw them all at you. You constantly will find new quests on accident. Pretty much almost all of them.
Yeah.
With an exception of the main quest, which even in itself, you kind of are just kind of going through the game, and it's telling you the story, and it's, okay, here's a new quest. There's a new quest. There's a new quest. And you get like this kind of experience system, which was a little confusing for me.
I didn't fully understand it.
I didn't fully understand it. Like you have this experience system with like individual enemies where you jump
There were
on them.
enemy types.
Yes, and then they're colored,
because they were
right?
colored, yeah, and it was based on how many enemies of that type you killed. The color bar would increase in level. Because apparently there's items. I never found anything that had a level restriction,
Or requirement, yeah.
but apparently they do exist where it's like, oh, you didn't throw enough pigs, and now you can't get this thing.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, and I wonder what those items did.
Right. Well, and there's like so many chests that you can't open.
Spoilers, I did not finish this.
I didn't either.
Yeah.
But I did sink like a lot of hours into this game. And
it is totally finishable.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know about in a week though. Well, not at Christmas week.
Not with our schedules,
I realized like, yeah, when we took this game on this week, I was like, oh wow, I kind of feel like bad that I didn't get this game like not on Christmas week.
From what I saw as far as general polling, about 7 hours.
Yeah, 7, 8. Yeah,
10 if you're a completionist.
I got about 4 or 5 hours into it. After having to restart it because I didn't save correctly because I had to figure out the save system. There was a point where I was like, how do I save? Because I did save initially when I was, and you see it in my my first impression video, like, but I forgot, and so I was like playing the heck out of it, and then I'm like, all right, cool, I want to save. I'm gonna end the session now. I'm like, what do I do? Does it happen automatically? I don't know, and I'm trying not to use save states and stuff because I want to play games like the way they were.
Yeah.
Unless I'm completely backed in a corner and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Same idea with like walkthroughs. I'm not gonna jump into a walkthrough unless I'm like absolutely need.
I'm just in the weeds. I got to get through this game.
I don't know what's going on, but so I was like, oh, whatever. Maybe it just auto saves, and I closed it out, and it came back, and I lost like 2.5 hours.
No, you have to go to a new area.
We gotta go to those signs.
Is a big critique.
Really, I actually ended up appreciating it because they give you so many of them.
Well, was it any sign? Because I didn't.
It's any sign that describes the area.
Oh, okay. See.
So because there's a part in the game where you go to like the haunted mansion area.
Yeah.
Of like and they have a sign for like every corner of that haunted mansion.
Oh, okay.
Which immediately when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be an MFer.
See,
I didn't put that there unless.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I was just using save states because
it was every sign.
I ain't got time for that.
Not every big sign, but every small sign is a save point. But also, to be fair, I would have done the same thing because I didn't know I lost 2.5 hours of gameplay. I had to replay, which was actually okay. I wasn't.
You didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it because I already understood the mechanics. I already knew how to go through certain levels, and then I discovered new things. And I was like, that's a sign of like good game design to me. Like, okay, well, your thing froze and you have to replay it, and you're like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's still enjoyable.
It's still enjoyable.
Yeah,
and this game does a great job of making you. Well, you definitely have to go back to a lot of places again, over and over and over.
That is the nature of its description as a Metrovania. Backtracking is
It is definitely a Metrovania.
That is, which is actually one of the nice things about it, though, because unlike a lot of Metroidvanias where you're backtracking through a stage and it's all the same and you're fighting all the same enemies.
Yeah.
This one evolves. This game changes. Anytime you do something significant, the stages behind you are different. There's something new in there, or at least,
which I appreciate a lot about this game.
Yeah, because I mean, even in the very, very beginning levels, was that the 1,000 flower forest or whatever?
Oh yeah, with the multicolored like ball
the
trees.
poof balls all over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you go, you find the
spores,
you find the dwarf village, and then you come back and there's pigs in there.
Yeah.
But then you come back the next time and now the pigs have like a bonfire in the middle of
it.
Like, like little things change.
Anything you do, well, the game shows that like you are making a difference within the game. And the dwarf village is like the first sign of that because one of the first missions, big missions you get is to go save a bunch of dwarves, and you don't really know where they are. They don't really explain. They just give you like this very vague description of like, oh, they're lost in the spores. So and you find them everywhere. At least where you just came from. And like you said, yeah, it does actually, it changes a little bit, especially when you unlock them and you rescue them and then it starts opening up. And now like,
because it's not ability based changes like a lot of Metroid where it's like, oh, now that you have the super dash, you can blow through these boulders or whatever. It's like it actually, the level itself changed, not the way you can interact with it.
Good example of that is the mountain with the wind.
Yeah.
So, which also brings up my point of the gameplay that this game is not easy.
No, it's mean.
It's difficult, but it's forgivable. Like, it doesn't. It's punishing, but it's also one of those kind of punishing games where it makes you better at it. Because I can't tell you how frustrated I was going into like Phoenix Mountain, I think is the name of the
Yeah.
level that has the wind
Yeah.
initially. And there's so much going on. You're introduced to so many new enemies, and like not just enemies, but mechanics. Like
Things you
there's
think are enemies that are now like, nope, I just need to use these plants to eat me and
all
poop me
the
out somewhere
plants.
else.
Yeah, but then you're like, oh, I got this. And then you fall on a plant, and then it sends you to the very beginning of the
Uh-huh.
level. And you're like, all right. Okay.
Which it's funny because I think I know exactly the plant you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's
with the 4.
it's meant to be the one that takes you back after you get the healing herbs for the dog.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be the here, I'm going to be nice and take you back to the beginning of the level.
I know this sounds crazy to people who haven't played this, but it does make sense. Trust us.
Yeah. But then me being like, no, I wasn't done exploring. And now
I know.
and then the idiot I was kept pushing forward. And I'm like,
Not to mention that you're fighting this wind mechanic that is actually one of the most frustrating.
you physically cannot get back.
You can't. And then you have things that you can't see that just trampoline you forward into sometimes those flower, what I'm going to call like Mario pipes, because that's pretty much what they
Yeah.
are. They're like the equivalent of like going down a pipe in Mario 1 and it goes to a different area, except it just sends you right back to the beginning or it sends you to a different spot.
Yeah.
But it was cool though. I get it. Like the game's very trial and error where it's like, here's a new area. Good luck. But you do learn. You play enough of the level. It has a very forgiving amount of save areas to where if you F up enough, you can just start from at least that part of the game. You don't have to go all the way back or go to a completely different section.
Yeah.
I found that to be cool, and it gave me that like one more time ism. Like, oh, no, I got to do another round. Like, I can get this. I hate that plant. Or what was that down there? I almost fell on that secret, because the game has a lot of secrets too.
Yeah, it does.
And they're extremely rewarding as well. Like when you find a cool thing or an area, sometimes they're like, but they're not. I'm like, oh, cool, I got a coin that gives me 500 of this point
That you don't really know what it
like,
does.
what does this point do?
The AP points.
Yeah, the AP points. And also when I would like reload my game to play another session, it would tell me what level I am. I'm like, well, when did I level up? Like,
Yeah.
level 5? What? There was nothing to indicate when I leveled up.
Well, and there's no like, there is no like power progression or other than
items.
I meant like leveling up.
Oh, okay.
No,
you're right though. Like it doesn't make you hit harder. It doesn't make you jump further.
You have to get items or complete things, get orbs.
Yeah.
That you will get more life and you'll get level ups, which was something I liked about the quest system. Is pretty much anytime you completed a quest, you filled up on lives.
Yeah, which was actually perfect because there's so many of them, and then like some of them are like you really have to trough through, and and so it did the right thing there with like the reward system, I think. And it made me want to push forward. And I was like, okay, well, what's next? Because I already have like 70 active side quests. That's one thing, though, a little bit of a criticism, but also I'm okay with it, is that it's just a game of side quests.
It is a game of side quests.
Even the main quest doesn't feel like a main quest. It feels like you're doing a side quest, but you are living within this very well-engineered world.
I think it was definitely a design choice. Because the bosses themselves, even in the lore, they're like, oh, the pigs don't do their magic where
right,
the place they're altering is not where they're located, and so the bosses you're fighting are not going to fix the problems in the area you're in. Did you fight any of the bosses?
Yeah, I fought the first one.
Okay, they're very easy.
Yes,
that's one of my biggest critiques.
But I also felt like some of the enemies were like low-key bosses, because those two floating like eyeball-y squid things,
I never figured out how to kill them.
I did, and I felt very rewarded by it.
Yeah,
I spent like an hour on that. I was like, wait a second, and I had to figure it out, and I did figure it out. You run them into each other.
See, that's what I thought it was,
but you have to jump on them and hit. Like you can jump on them two ways. You can jump on their face, poke their eye, where they can't see what they're doing, and then you can jump on their head where you can throw them. And then I was like, wait a second, and I threw them into each other once. Nothing happened. I'm like, I wonder how if I do
Oh,
this
so
like
you got to get
3
them
or
to
4
actually
times.
run into each other.
And I did, and then it was like, and it solved. It's like, you beat this mission, and I was like, oh yeah, and it felt so rewarding. I was like, I did this on my own.
So I was on the right path.
I want to call my mom, and be like, yo,
because that's what I was thinking, but I was like, I ain't got time for this.
Well, the game does that well, though. There's a lot of it tests your like critical thinking and your problem solving skills.
It's actually a quote from the developer himself.
Oh, really? I didn't know this
about this game.
Yeah,
is I'm gonna butcher it. I didn't write it down. I should have. He said that what he what he was going for with this game was, instead of you just go from A to B, this game makes you think, well, maybe I should do this now, but now I can do this, and maybe I'll go over here and do this thing with this because of what I did earlier. There's critical thinking
makes
involved.
You think.
It's
big time,
because that is one of the things with this game, that it is linear in a non-linear sense.
Yeah, it's very it gave me vibes of Symphony of the Night,
which is one of my favorite Castlevania games.
Mine too. It's one of my top 10 PS1 games. And my favorite Castlevania game, actually, to be honest. I wasn't really feeling like the ones that came after it that were kind of like biting off of it. That's a whole different conversation. But definitely got some Symphony of the Night vibes from it, and well received. I was happy with that because it did give you those critical thinking situations where you're like, oh, well, this was here and now this happened, and now I have to like recollect to that thing happening, and maybe it's a little bit cryptic, but no, I figured it out, and it's such a huge dopamine dump when you're like, oh yes, I got it.
Yeah. That being said, the boss fights were non-existent, honestly.
It didn't really need boss fights. It didn't really need them.
See, I was looking forward to going back to the parallel that I drew with Super Mario World.
Well, I was going to say, in Super Mario World, the boss fights are easy, right? Kind of.
But they're different. They're varied.
Yeah, they're varied. Yeah.
Like the bosses do different things. This one, they kind of do different things, but the gist on how to beat them is exactly the same.
To be fair, though, we didn't get to the end of the bosses or the later bosses.
Well, purely for research purposes, I watched people fight all the bosses.
Okay, so they're all the same.
Okay. It's literally the one that is different is the underwater boss.
Okay.
But it is, you jump on them and you throw them in a bag.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Super Mario World, though. You just kind of jump on it. It's like a different environment in the background.
But they do different stuff.
That's true.
Where in this one, they just teleport around until you get them in the right, like the arenas are different, but their mechanics are they teleport to a space.
Yeah.
You jump on them and you throw them in the bag. It's just getting them to teleport to where you need them to throw them in the bag.
I still argue that that's very Super Mario World, though, because at least the first 4 like castles you go to, kind of the same idea. It's like the backgrounds are different.
I guess the combat mechanics just feel different.
It's fair. Well, but Super Mario World was a masterpiece, so it's hard to. I mean, it created that.
The fact that you have a weapon system and it really never comes into play.
Right. I didn't actually use them very often. I
use them to interact with the environment more.
Me too. Than to fight. And then I realized on that one level with the mountain thing with the leaves that move up and down.
Yeah.
I didn't realize until too late that I got stuck so many times. I'm like, I'm screwed. I didn't realize I could just throw my boomerang and hit them and they move.
And that's what I used it for more was world interaction than actual combat.
That's so funny. But I mean, yeah, I get it. So that's kind of that's a little bit of a regression as far as the game's potential is that its boss fights are underwhelming.
But at the end of the day, we're not playing God of War. No. You're not playing a boss fight game. You're playing an adventure, exploratory RP, Explorage B.
Yes. It really is, though. Like the game's roots are very well planted into exploring the world and figuring it out. And I would argue that it's kind of an RPG, especially when you go to these environments. Which have we even dipped? Let's do it right now. Graphics and audio. Let's go.
Okay.
So it's a really unique and colorful world that is its world, right? Like, and even though they have the cutscenes that you can't skip, so let you know you can't skip them, which is fine. But I'm only complaining because I had to restart the game.
I
and
was
was
gonna say,
like,
just make sure your save states
yeah,
are before.
I can't really knock the game for it because I was only mad about it when I had to restart the game due to my own operational error. But like the cutscenes didn't really even have to be there. They were pretty and cool and funny. They built the world a little bit better, and it kind of looked like it has an anime associated with it because it was so well done.
Well, the fact that it was voice acted.
Yeah,
and,
it was great. But I feel like the game itself is just a big exploration, and there were scenes that would go from the 2D 2.5D into like an old school isometric RPG
Mhm.
when you're going around a town, and I thought like that impressed me. I wasn't expecting that. I was like, the game didn't even need that. They did that. Like you go around the town, talk to all the different people from that classic RPG view. I thought that was super cool.
In fairness, I wish there was more.
Yeah.
Maybe there is, because at the stages I got to,
Yeah.
the isometric was kind of just whatever.
It seemed like when you came to like a plot turn or like a
Well, it almost felt like filler to me.
little bit, but it also was it's how you would acquire a lot of your events was through going around talking to people.
Right.
And I thought also it was cool when you go to these towns that it would actually shift from the side view back to the isometric view. And that gave me like major, for some reason of all games, it reminded me of Grandia. I don't know if you ever played that, but
I never played Grandia.
Grandia or like Skies of Arcadia.
It made me think of it just made me think of Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it definitely had Final Fantasy-ish, and it came out after, so I mean the game definitely has a lot of its time influences.
Yeah.
But it does it well, so I can't fault it.
No, I mean it is pretty. Like I said, in the beginning of the episode, it has that painterly aspect,
Yeah.
or almost like claymation, like Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah, like Clay Fighter.
And everything's very vibrant.
Yeah.
The only criticism, and it's not even, I'm not even going with like what I read, because critics trashed the audio of this game.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprise. But they
they
majorly liked it.
But they praised the mechanics and the visuals and
Yeah.
the gameplay and everything. And this game doesn't deserve to be dumped on for its audio, but it's nothing special.
I mean it wasn't bad. And like I said before earlier in this episode that I got Donkey Kong Country vibes. Like that's the atmosphere they were going for. I'm not saying it's comparative. Obviously, like David Weiss's like composition in Donkey Kong Country is legendary. But this game definitely tried to it was inspired by that. There's no way to deny that. If you play Donkey Kong Country and then you play Tomba, you will see that correlation.
So as far as Donkey Kong Country versus Tomba goes, sing me a Tomba song. Hum me any one of the tunes right now.
It would probably honestly just sound like a Donkey Kong Country song. I'd be like,
and that's what I'm getting at is Donkey Kong Country. You know it's a Donkey Kong Country song.
Yeah.
Whereas Tomba, the only memorable soundbite that I can even think of is when you solve an event and
or yeah. Okay, it's fair. I mean, it's serviceable audio, right? Across the board. Sound effects, music.
And I think why it got torn apart is because at the time there was such a high bar,
of course,
for video game musics and audio,
of course.
And so to have this thing come out and just be subpar in that category, that's why that was the thing the critics latched onto.
Right. But that's all they could. And honestly, for its time too, like 1998, especially us discovering last week that the PS1 came out in 94, and to think like it came after Final Fantasy VII and all the other games that we've cited as possibly its inspiration.
It also had bad competition too.
It did, but it still stood out. Like, and it still was a game as far as like graphics and audio. It built its world and it lived within it, and I feel like it was appropriate for it. I mean, the only thing they could have done better as far as audio was concerned was get literally David Wise to come in.
Yeah, I
and
guess
compose. Yeah, you know, for a small team,
somebody to crank out some bangers.
I'm very impressed with what they were able to achieve with the small team. Not even just impressed, but like extremely impressed. But then again, you know, the renowned of the people who were heading this project, or I mean, what were you expecting?
It had some bad. This is a completely different topic, really, but it's kind of like, I feel like we're leading into it.
Yeah.
It had really bad timing as far as why this is a undiscovered gem. Because it came out and it was competing with Final Fantasy VII,
Yeah.
Spyro,
Oh yeah.
Crash Bandicoot,
Yeah.
and like, so
Jet Moto.
yeah. But I mean, right there, there are 3 games right there.
Not to mention the N64's launch, which happened like, yeah.
And so now you're fighting with the
before.
console wars too.
Yeah.
And when you as a kid, if you're going to the store,
Yeah.
and you got enough money to buy one game, and you're looking, what do I want to play? Do I want to either be the cool dragon, the guy with a giant sword, or this weird Bandicoot thing, or a naked child with pink hair in the woods?
He wasn't naked. He had shorts.
Yeah, but he might as well be naked.
Yeah, with pink hair. Yeah, I get you.
But it
came off more childish than actually the game was, because I can imagine like a kid playing this game easily that would have been attracted to the game based off of its initial appearance.
Right, but marketing wise,
right.
I mean, you ever see a Tomba commercial?
I think there was one though.
I mean, there was apparently
I
there's a
weirdly
whole
remember one.
There's a whole marketing ploy, but it didn't take off.
Yeah, it was it was one of those situations where like this game was created by a you know, like a cult team.
Yeah, it is very small too.
Very talented people, and that's kind of where the game ended up in its lineage, or at least its history is like it's a cult game, you know, and it makes sense. You were right though in that observation that like it was competing against a murderer's row. Well, it had no chance, but
which is weird because the year before, Rayman did amazingly well. Like Rayman sold millions of copies versus the, I think, collective 320,000.
Well, Rayman actually I thought was an earlier release, but I'm not sure.
It was 1 year before.
Really?
Yeah, it came out just a year prior.
Rayman's music, man.
Well, that's a thing.
I mean, yeah. Also, we use Rayman. We use the
yeah.
That's from the game. That's when you beat a level.
But
yeah, I mean, I get it though. Like it's timing. You're right though. Timing that Rayman perhaps was not competing initially with the success of things. It may have been competing with the launch of some of these. It was
probably
IPs.
the last hyper successful 2.5.
Debatable.
Well, until the everybody got their fix of the full 3D.
Right. Yeah, because they were in that weird transitional period of N64 kind of like shoehorned in, and also the PlayStation shoehorned in this like, all right, this the fully 3D environments with polygons, and it was kind of like a rough transition where things looked ugly, but to us they looked kind of amazing.
And then then things went back where there were some dope 2D titles that started coming back.
Well, I'd say this before.
Like for example, Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, well, Symphony of the Night. I mean, I don't even think it was given the renown that it deserved when it first was released. I feel like also it just kind of gained that eventually. But it's some people actually dislike that game.
Was it the magic system?
I don't know. People, maybe they just don't have enough iron in their system. they're iron deficient.
You're misrepresenting my people.
Yes. What a miserable bag of lies, or whatever the term is. But yeah, I feel Tomba did get cobbled into that, but it was worth it's worth like it should have had some form of a spotlight. It's unfortunate. It was an unfortunate situation of its time period, its release, and what it was going up against. But also, I mean, it was like we said before last week when the game was chosen, we were like, well, we remember it, but we never played it. And that was the fault of the game's marketing, is that we saw it and we knew it existed, but we didn't have any incentive to try it because, like you said, the market was flooded with these AAA titles.
Yeah.
In different areas, 3D, 2D, 2.5, sports, whatever it is. And so like it was a creature and a victim of its own release date.
Especially that system. There's a mountain of garbage on the PS1.
Well, dude, PS1, PS2 have like so many games.
Yeah.
So silly. But yeah,
well, since we're on it, do we want to just give our review?
Yeah, let's hit the verdict. All right, what's your verdict?
Verdict, I say play this game. This is a gem.
Really?
I thought it was it might be like you said, the rose tinted everything. But I enjoyed it. It's fun and it's got something to bite into. No pun intended.
Sure.
But they're just the minor quest element type thing,
right?
And the discovery. And then that pure dopamine drop of figuring something out.
Bro, I can't agree more with at least that statement. Like that, every time you feel like, especially if it was something tough that you actually had to take the time to figure out, it feels so good.
And you're not fighting with mechanics the entire time.
Right.
It is tight. I will take that back. There is one that I did not like, the swinging mechanics.
Oh, well, you got to get used to it.
But that's the one jank thing.
It also throws it in your face early on, and I'm like, this is a little too much early on because you don't use it as much.
Especially when there's one area I'm thinking of in particular.
Yeah.
The very first level.
Oh yeah, with the 3, and then you just slide down
and then
into the
slide, and then it does damage. It does damage for some reason. Where
and it throws
fall damage doesn't exist in other places.
Well, it's because the whole bottom part is lined with like blackberry thorns.
Still silly.
No, I'm not defending it. I'm saying that like it annoyed me, but that area, I guess it was implemented to teach you how to do the swing mechanics. But to this day, because you go back and forth across that a lot, and I was like, I still can't nail that down. Like what? But I feel you there.
So. I would give, and I said it earlier, it's a hidden gem. It's one of those that a lot of people passed up, and I do feel like it is worth your time.
Okay. That's the Mr. Miller Super Garbage Day verdict. It's a hidden gem. You haven't given this since Rampart.
No, Rampart also a hidden gem to me.
Okay. Well, here's my take. Tomba is clearly a high quality game. It oozes with presentation and charm. It really showcases like the PlayStation's, like everything the PlayStation had to offer. And the PlayStation did really well with these 2.5D games. I really feel like it was one of the best systems for this because it was able to take this on that weird transition point in video game history when we went from like 2D to 3D. There was like this era of these kind of games, like Symphony of the Night's a great example. Brave Fencer Musashi is another great example. Other than that, it lives in the same ranks as these other high caliber single player side scrolling games of its time. It's a shame that nothing else became of this series other than the sequel. It's a huge missed opportunity because of the amount of effort and love and time and world building that was put into this IP, especially from a smaller team. I absolutely adore this game. I highly recommend it to people who are fans of platforming or adventure games, but also just like everybody. And I definitely give it my hidden gem rating. I'm going to still play it.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to it a little bit, to be honest, even during like a busy week. I absolutely love this game. I could restart it again and be okay with it. I would just do better. Perhaps maybe because of the run of games in the last episodes we've done may sway us a little bit towards that.
Thank God, an actual game.
But yeah, but I know good when I see good, and Tomba's good. Tomba's great. I appreciate it. I'm glad it exists. And
I mean that intro sequence, the fact that you get anything that starts me with a little anime,
and it does it throughout the game too. Though there's, there's key points in the game where it goes into like these these cutscenes that are so well done. I'm blown away. Unlike Iron and Blood, but yes, 100% gets my vote and Mr. Miller's vote as a hidden gem game. If you agree or disagree, you always can email us at supergarbageday@gmail.com. Give us your opinion. The game's great. Play it. I actually, like I've said before, like I want to buy the games that we review that we end up. I took a look at the price.
Another spendy one.
Oof. Yeah, dude. Like loose, just the CD, like $130.
Jeez.
I know. Makes sense though.
I mean, these games that are actually good.
Rampart's not that expensive, but I mean, Tomba, I get it. Like and then there's a sequel, so I'm like, oh, well, maybe down the road. I don't know.
I watched some footage of Tomba 2.
Did you?
Yeah, it's a different monster.
Really?
Similar. It's similar enough, but well, I'll put it at a 2.75.
Okay. My brain can't even wrap around that.
It gets some weird camera angles and does some weird stuff. The sprites are very all over the place.
Okay. I have to look into this now.
Just like the way they're animated.
Yeah.
To try and get the shading and everything right. All of a sudden it looks like some of them, like as the camera shifts, it looks like they're just like exploding.
Okay.
But
I don't know if I'm okay with that.
It's very weird.
Well,
but apparently it was very well received with the fan base.
Well, that makes sense. But I'm curious how it even. I should have looked into how Tomba 1 sold, because
not great.
I wonder if there was like this contract. Here, I'm gonna go back into my like retro video game conspiracy. I'm gonna put my hat on, my foil hat, and say I'm wondering if like, okay, so like the creator, the person who was Takuro Fujiwara, I wonder if because of his renown and his background, he was like, I want to make this game. I'm not with Capcom anymore. And so like a publisher gave him, maybe Sony was like, okay, well, we'll give you the budget for 2 games because of what you've done with Mega Man and what you've done. Actually, he kind of worked on the first Resident Evil too. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's what happened. And it just didn't sell well. And they're like, all right, well, peace. But then again, I haven't played the second one, so I don't know if it's good or bad. But from what you're saying, it seems like it's way more out there.
So what the numbers, they weren't great.
Yeah.
It's not like it bombed.
Right.
But he was just like,
if it absolutely bombed, they wouldn't have made a second.
But that's the thing, is he was like, that's enough to make a sequel. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
he did say that it was his passion project.
And then they made the sequel and it did about the same as the first one, which is not commercially viable.
What a bummer. This would be such a good Switch game.
Yeah.
It really would. If they
I wonder I wonder if he would have switched hats and tried to make it a Nintendo IP instead of going with Sony, if that would have stuck.
They still could. I don't know about the legalities of Sony and Nintendo's contracts. I assume they're very strict.
They have to be very cutthroat.
Oh, God, yeah.
I mean, that's literally 2 samurai houses looking to just cut each other apart.
But at least him, I mean, I'm not sure if he's still with us in this world, but I mean, like 13 years with.
Yeah, he would be like 63 right now.
Okay, well, he's still young. So, as a video game developer from Japan, I would say he's middle-aged.
I mean,
but you know, if somebody worked for Capcom for 13 years, worked on these major iconic games, I wonder what he's doing these days. So I'll have to look into that. But yeah, that's Tomba, everybody. We recommend it. It's good. Thank you, Daniel Shoestring. Thank you. Yeah, you just ended our year, made our week more pleasant than last week.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate booting it up. So
no, I loved it. I was showing it off to my kids. My girlfriend, I showed her some of it. She actually came into my stream and was laughing. She's like, she just kept like saying, yeah. Yeah. But she was also she was giving commentary on like things were happening, and she was like kind of involved. I'm like, this is also a sign of a good game.
Yeah, when
it's a good game, dude. It's like I feel bad for it. It's one of those one of these episodes where I feel bad for the game. Not so much Rampart, because Rampart actually was pretty successful, and it was grandpa of tower defense. But Tomba, yeah, it's underrated. 100% underrated. It should at least have an HD remake on the Switch. It's a perfect Switch game. My son would love to play this game.
Yeah,
and me too. It's just as challenging for both of us.
It would make a great portable.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. They should do like a double pack where you get both. They might. I don't know. I'm just talking out of my butt. So All right, Mr. Miller, set time. Shink.
Yeah.
All right, this week I'm choosing a system we haven't played yet.
Ooh.
One of my favorite systems of all time. One of my favorite. Number 2 or number 1. I don't know. It changes, but definitely a system. A system that I just recently purchased. And by recently, I mean last year. That I purchased a console for $15 I found at a thrift store and it wasn't working. And I looked up a YouTube channel on how to fix it and I fixed it and it's working great. And I'm very excited.
Nice.
To play, hopefully, if the game's not too expensive on it. And that system is called the Sega Genesis.
Okay.
All right, so our game this week is from 1988 on the Sega Genesis.
Okay. Go
and the
on.
arcade, and the PC Engine, and the Commodore 64, and the Amiga.
Go on.
It's a side-scrolling shooter, shoot 'em up,
Ooh.
single player and multiplayer, where you play as a cosmic radiation bombarded robot.
Yeah.
Shooting the heck out of everything. And the name of the game is Atomic Robo Kid.
Yeah.
That's the next game on Super Garbage Day. Will it be good? Will it be trash? Will it be treasure?
Atomic Robo Kid.
Atomic Robo Kid with a hyphen in between Robo Kid.
Oh, what the hell?
All right. Thank you for joining us. We have a Patreon. Check it out. $2 to get a bonus episode every week, or $5 to put a game of your choice, 20 years or older, into a pool that the last week of every month we will draw from and play and review here on this show. Thank you for being here. I want to thank our patrons. We got a new patron, KCB. Thank you for joining us.
KCB.
KCB.
Baby.
He's called KCB because he has literally the same name as I do. His name is Brian Ross. So, but he's from Kansas City, so it's just Kansas City Brian.
Oh, okay.
So, thank you, KCB, for joining us. And I think that's it this week. Thank you for showing up. As always, thank you, Mr. Miller, for coming to my house and recording these with us and with us. Me and all the people in my head.
The proverbial we.
The proverbial we.
The multiple B Rosses.
Yes.
The singularity.
No, there's only one B Ross. No.
There can only be one.
There's not another. But KCB knows that. So
someday, KCB.
KCB. And I think that's it. We'll see you next week for Atomic? Yeah.
Atomic Robo Kid!
Atomic Robo Kid. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Woo!
We love you. Bye.
Thank you for watching with my dad. I just want to say everybody, guys, bye.
Productions.